Okay, we're just getting live. We're live.
Yep.
Okay. It's 5 o'clock on Tuesday, July the 25th, 2023. I'm going to call this meeting to order of Point Edward Village Council. Is there anyone with pecuniary interest?
No.
No. Okay. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral lands of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. So we have some visitors here tonight, so we're going to alter the agenda slightly to move up the item that you're all interested in, so that you don't have to stay through, because you were at the end. So under bylaws, it's bylaw 29 of 2023. We're going to move to that item, if everybody's agreeable to that.
Yep.
I was looking at them.
Oh.
It's July. I'll let you out early. Okay. Who could I invite Mr. Monson to the into the bar, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I shouldn't have made the motion. You can make the motion.
And
I'll
I'll
second. Thank you. Okay.
Well, good evening, your worship, members of council. Tonight's a very exciting evening for Point Edward Council. And I know Jim's, oh, great, it's Jim's got the presentation open. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ken Lunton. I'm the manager of planning and development services for the county of Lambton. We provide planning services here to the village. Joining me also is Jared Preston, who is one of our planners. So we have a very brief overview presentation. This will look similar to the last time we were here a little bit. Here is an aerial view of the subject site that we've nicknamed the Marina Lands, which is the location of the subject rezoning application. So we can move on to the next slide. And here are some photos from Exmouth Street of the subject site. Yeah, you can just scroll through those, Jim. Thanks. And then this is the Cargill site there, just on the corner of Exmouth Kitty Corner to the subject site. It's important to understand that this site has been looked at for development of various types all the way back to 1968. So what you're seeing here is actually, if you go back one there, Jim.
Just give me a minute here, please.
Yep. Please just click on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you, as I mentioned, it's important to note that this site has been designated for mixed use development dating back as far as 1968. So this is an excerpt from the official plan for the village of Point Edward back in 1968, showing its designation. So to say that this site has been planned for some form of change, it has been decades in the making. Moving forward a little bit closer to today, if we go to the next slide. We added a slide. There we go. The zoning bylaw from 1982 also shows the site being zoned in preparation for development, although based on what you see there, that concept was more of around a inner marina expansion of the waterway network, which is also part of why we're doing the rezoning tonight, because some of the EP lands that are, or hazard lands, are zoned based on this. My point in adding this simply is to make it very clear that this site has been looked at and seen as an opportunity site by the village for some time. So this is the site of the rezoning. This is the area that will be subject to the the consolidation of the 3 existing marina zones and then changing of the hazard lands over to create one consolidated marina zone 1.6 with the holding symbol being retained. That will ensure that some of the additional studies that will be needed for the next phases, like the plan of condominium, as well as eventual site planning, will be received through those various processes. And one of the last things council will do is lift the holding symbol to then allow development to proceed. But we're at a point now where you can make a decision on the zoning bylaw. And like I mentioned, the next phase is the plan of condominium. Because we have not updated the official plan for the county, while the Planning Act doesn't require a meeting for a plan of subdivision or condo anymore, the county plan still does. So there will be a public meeting through that process before you, since we will likely not get an amendment to the plan at the county done before we get there. But there will be public participation in that process as well. So it's staff's recommendation that council adopt bylaw 29 of 2023 and give it 3 readings. The applicant and their team are here and happy to answer questions, and we're here as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation and for the recommendation. When would you see the timing for the public meeting? Just a ballpark.
Yeah, so through your worship, what we have always set up as part of the county's process for a plan of condominium or plan of subdivision is that we don't even talk to the municipality to schedule that until we know we're pretty much ready to deem an application complete. We've actually aligned it so that it's in a logical progression of the application. So back before the province took the requirement out, what would happen is we would deem an application complete. We would work with the CAO and figure out, here's how much time we need for circulation with the agencies, which is generally a month, how much time we need to compile comments and then put together a report, because we're going to provide you a cover report like we did with the zoning bylaw amendment that said, here's the proposal. And then figure out the schedule so that it's following a logical path moving forward. It's not something that sort of comes up and then it's an obstacle. It keeps the application moving forward. So generally, from the date of the deeming an application complete to the meeting is about 1.5 months, because to get a report put together and compile comments, 2 months at the latest. And it will depend on what dates work with
Sure.
council. I'll just say that this municipality has been exceedingly helpful in terms of scheduling special council meetings when we've needed to do that. So I don't expect it'll be the longer of the duration.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? I'll start.
If no councillors have any questions,
Okay.
the holding designation,
Mhm.
how does that get dealt with in the future?
Yeah, so through your worship, it's done essentially like a zoning bylaw amendment. The only difference is that it's not really a public hearing matter. It's a technical matter before council. So there is still a notice that's required. But then the other thing that is available to you, should council wish to consider it, which I believe we actually enabled through your OP update, is the province set out certain things could be delegated to staff. So if you wanted to eventually look at delegating removal of holding symbols to staff, that's an option that we could probably get to before we actually have the holding symbol come back before you. And it would just be done by staff, but it's a zoning bylaw amendment that's very technical in nature. It's a report and then you pass a bylaw and that's it. Really.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. A motion. Okay, we need a motion to pass the bylaw.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that bylaw 29 of 2023 being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this 25th day of July 2023.
I'll second. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's done.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for helping us through that.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
No. Read, sorry.
So you're just gonna talk through that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We're moving on to number 5, which would have been a delegation from MIG.
So this delegation has had to be postponed. There's a number of questions for clarification that MIG is going to be setting up meetings with the 2 proponents that had the lowest bids in. And they have a number of questions with each of them they want to go over with. And she's hoping to get that done by the end of the week, and then maybe early next week have
Thank you.
another council meeting at that time in order to bring a recommendation to move this project forward.
So then we'll just wait to hear back when we schedule that meeting. Okay, then move on to adoption of minutes. First one is council meeting from June the 27th.
I'll move for the adoption of the council meeting minutes of June 27th, 2023.
Seconded.
I can second that,
Seconded.
Mary Ann.
Thank you.
Got a question on
Yes.
those? On the seconder and a bunch of these, they got Ariana's name down as Ariana Noctor, not Counselor Noctor. So I was wondering if we can update the minutes to reflect that.
Innocent Eastcrag, she's just not a counselor.
Okay.
The rest
Yeah.
of us are all counselors.
We'll have to take a look at
And the same
the
as
setting in there somewhere.
the last notice too, Jen. It went out as Ariana,
Thank you for
You're
bringing that forward.
no problem.
No, make those revisions within prescribed, and then it won't, I mean, it's an automatic after that. Okay. So we'll move on to financial reports. First one is general operations.
I'll move that the total revenues and general operations for the month of June 2023 in the amount of $4,576,566.94 be approved. And that the total expenditures and general operations for the month of June 2023 in the amount of $2,112,793.60 be approved.
I'll second. Seconded. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Move on to environmental services.
I'll move that the total revenues and environmental services for the month of June 2023 in the amount of $1,185.75 be approved. And that the total expenditures in the environmental services for the month of June 2023 in the amount of $121,509.06 be approved. And that the updated financial statements for the month of May 2023 showing revenues of $136,010.42 and the expenses of $131,385.02 be received and filed.
Okay, seconded by Deputy Mayor Grimes. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, move on to committee reports. First one is operations.
I'll move that the Operations Committee meeting of July 11th, 2023 be approved as circulated.
I'll second that.
Just a quick
Mhm.
little summary on a couple items here. We did declare some of the ice edgers as surplus and we'll be disposing of them as well as some equipment at Public Works. The flower basket signs have been added in the downtown area. We've upgraded the lighting in the splash pad washroom to LED and replaced the hand dryer. At the committee, I did chat about, it was nice to see the students out clearing the stormwater drains during a storm, and because it did greatly reduce complaints and
Mhm.
also set us up good for the
Mhm.
storm that was
So
on the
what was
way.
to- What was to come?
Yes, yes. We did make a recommendation, and you'll be voting on that here, that we add additional fencing in the sport court at Monk Street Park, and that will be contained within the McCrae Street project, so there is sufficient funds to cover that. We did discuss the waterfront park washrooms and the frequency of cleaning, and that was it for that meeting.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Going to move on to fire committee.
I will move that the minutes of the fire committee meeting held July 11th, 2023 be approved as circulated.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Mondu. Any questions? Move on to environmental services. Sorry, all in favor. Sorry, I forgot the vote. Carried, thank you. Environmental services,
Move that the committee meeting minutes of the environmental services meeting of July 11th, 2023 be adopted as circulated.
I'll second
seconded by Deputy McGovern.
I just have
Sure.
more of a question, just as a follow-up. Did we get any more updates on the digester lid project? I know Jay was expecting something
Yeah.
coming up.
So any tests that have been done have failed. So we are going to be setting up another meeting with MIG and the contractor.
Hmm.
In the next couple of days. I met with MIG this afternoon on another issue and they're wanting to set something up in the next couple of days to discuss that again with Matt. And so
Okay.
All in favor? Next one is finance.
I'll move that the minutes of the finance committee meeting held July 11th, 2023 be approved as circulated.
Second.
Seconded by.
I have one comment to make on the minutes. Item 3 in new business was the crossing guard program. And council's going to consider different options for that. And we'll have a discussion of that further with the St. Clair Street project in the future. Thank you. Also, one more thing. We received our quarterly payment from OLG. We received $375,814. So this year to date, we've received $790,558.
Wanted to add to that.
Sorry, I read on your parade.
Sorry, yeah, I had a note here. I'll do it now. So, the payment was less than we thought we may be getting, but recognizing that they were down for 3 weeks because of a cyber incident. So, the treasurer wanted to note that, the average daily amount went up approximately $4,600 a day. But then we had the outage. So we're still, we're at even.
it did go up
Towards-
that much. It went up to that
Sorry.
much, right?
Sorry, then I read it wrong.
Yeah, last year's average was 4,600. This year it's 5,527.
Sorry, okay. So if that hadn't happened, we would have been in good stead, but we are on par on budget right now, even aside from that incident, as long as nothing else happens. So Tina just came back from vacation today and put that together.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Then the next one, miscellaneous reports. Maybe, sure,
Okay, I'll move that the building permit report, the committee adjustment minutes and the police services board minutes all be received and filed.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Council Burgess. Any questions on any of the 3 items? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Then number 14, communications receive and file list 1 through
6.
6.
Probably do
Yeah.
before. I would
Do
think
the-
they're the same. I'll move
Okay,
items
Do
1 to
1 to
4.
4, the AMO.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And then if you've got
All-
highlights from.
Okay, all in favor on that?
Yep.
Then next one is St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority.
Yeah, I'll move that the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority board presentation on the drinking water source protection be received and filed. Thank you.
Okay.
And just quick comments, it's just every year we get a presentation on the protection of our drinking water source protection. And at the meeting, one of the members asked that this be forwarded to all member municipalities. A lot of information. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me and I'll pass it on to Ken Phillips to get feedback. But it just talks about how much emphasis is put on protecting our water sources and having spill zones and how to protect those spill zones, both groundwater and lake and river water. So it was just our annual update, and it's been shared with you for information.
Thank you. All in favor? May and June Ontario Provincial Police Report.
I'll move that the May and June Point Edward Police Service Board report be received and filed.
I second that.
Second. Questions?
I just have a comment,
Yeah.
if I may. I don't know if everybody's aware, but the last police services board meeting, we had the media here, Terry Bridge from the Observer. Wrote an interesting article, very well written, I thought, and it's generated some true action. You'll see Sarnia Police and OPP are now cracking down on those trucks that are meandering through both municipalities. And it's nice to see the power of the media. He wrote it and there was action, and the other items that he commented on, it was good. It was a good, fair reporting.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, move on to new business. First one is regarding a request for an exemption regarding a fence that's was built higher than bylaw.
So this request came in about a month ago. The 8-foot fence that was constructed, and they're looking for an exemption to the 6-foot rule. I've circulated the correspondence from the person asking for the exemption, the original 94 bylaw, and then the 209 amendment that actually calls for the 6-foot restriction. And then just a short report from me about it. And then comments from the direct neighbor to 406 Arthur. Included in the submission from the person asking for the exemption were a number of letters from neighborhood residents that had no didn't have an objection to the request. So this is a bylaw that is just put forward by council without, like, it's not part of the zoning bylaw. That's why there's no real planning document. The property standards officer did go over and look at things. The one thing that she clarified for me yesterday is that she did see a camera at one point. She had no idea if the camera was live or it was one of these round with a dark circle, so you couldn't tell. You know, she didn't know if it was active and she couldn't tell where it was pointed, but there, you know, she said there was a camera there of some sort when she went over to look at it. She talked about the fence. It is approximately 8 feet high. She said that the neighbor's property at 408, that his fence is 7 feet high. Now in his letter, he's saying that it's on his side at 6 feet. So that's, I mean, there could be a change in elevation there that explains that. So anyway, the information before you, and it's really up to council on how you want to deal with this matter.
Okay, who wants to speak first?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sympathetic to Miss Help's situation with her neighbors. However, this does not give her the right to ignore the village Point Edward bylaws. As she stated in her letter, she was aware of the fence height restriction when the fence was built. Our bylaw does say that a fence can not have a height greater than 1.83 meters or 6 feet. It may be permitted provided it has received approval from council, and council has not given approval prior to construction of this fence, as we're finding out about it after the fact. I'll make a motion. There's anybody
Anybody
else
else
want to
want to
comment or?
No, I was just going to say, it's my understanding, Ms. Helps does state that she was aware of the bylaw. In speaking to her, she said she thought 8 foot was permitted, and at the time, and there was in one of our bylaws, there is a reference to 8 foot when you're around a commercial property. So she thought she was okay, but that's why she came to us for the exemption. But I don't have a lot. That's about the only thing I want to comment on.
What I read was she said she knew that it wasn't allowed.
Right.
So my concern is, I mean, I feel badly for someone like that, but my concern is that as soon as you go, oh, okay, sorry, you made a mistake, then we're opening a precedent for anybody else that wants to contravene and say, oh, sorry, I need it. I need an exemption. Now, the one caveat I wanted to say was perhaps if her neighbor next door would agree to sign off, the one that is directly next door that hasn't approved it, that might be something they could consider.
Let's have a question
Sure.
through you to Mr. Burns. So the fence that goes down between their houses is the one that's over 7 feet on 406's.
That's my
side.
understanding.
Yeah, so if you look at the fence that runs down the property from the front of the house, the fence at the front of the house is about 6 inches higher than the fence that divides the property. So yes, it is probably 6 feet standing in their yard, but it's well over 7 in this health yard. So how do we define the height of a fence? Is it based, because they've built their grade up with cement walkway and sidewalk
Mhm.
and then built the fence starting at the sidewalk. So is the 6 feet started? Like I could build a 10-foot,
Right,
essentially a sidewalk height. I couldn't, but I mean,
Right.
he's picked up an extra foot with that grade elevation.
so basically, if there's, I think the interpretation would be that if there is. A ground level on one side of the fence that is that 6 feet or lower, then it would be allowed. And, you know, if there's nothing. In the bylaws that prevent a person from building their property up a little bit as they have, and then you put a fence on top of it, that's
So we would measure from
from Mr. 408's property.
versus 406. And so
Or maybe I have that backwards.
Um,
No.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna mention names, but one example where I learned is a street where there was a home built. And it go like the house is built here and then the neighbor's yard's like that. And what we learned at that time was the level, like the measure of the fence was on the corner of the property of the people building the fence. So if you're down here, it was much higher, but if you were on their property, it was allowable. You know what I mean? So it's a weird rolling street. So it's the land on where it's built, not your neighbors. Is what we were taught at that time.
I have a question, just like the elephant in the room question. How did we settle or any municipality settle on 6 feet?
That's, you know, I wasn't around when that.
Yeah, no, and that's
Yeah.
why I don't mean
Yeah.
to put anybody on the spot, but that's like the elephant in the room for me
Mhm.
is, you know, a couple inches, what's the difference?
Right. I don't have an answer to that question.
I think in light of an answer, I think the thought process was to not create prison-like
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
walls. So 6 foot, I can still see over a 6-foot fence if I looked up
I could
or
see-
whatever.
I can see down
It's
to the lake.
It's not like a series of walls, right? And I
Yeah.
think they felt 6 foot was, you know, you can still see around yourself and see out, but you start getting into 8-10 foot fences, then you're creating almost like I say, prison type atmosphere. That's my thought processes.
I know this has come up before, I think in my first term, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I asked the question then that I can plant a nice dense cedar hedge along my property. It can be as tall as it wants,
Yeah.
which is going to block everything and give me that privacy if I want it. And I was always questioning, and I don't think I dragged it on too long, but what the difference is, because I've done that in my yard. I've got 6 foot, but my house sits up
Mhm.
on kind of a hill a little bit. But in my backyard, I can stand at the ground. I can see over my fence. I'm about 6 feet tall. But I have cedars now that I've been there for almost 17 years that are about 15 feet high and give us great privacy around our lot. That's why I always question the,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I realize the cedars are green, they breathe, you know, they benefit the environment versus a wall like prison, like you said,
Yeah.
but that's why I've always questioned in my mind why that number.
Mhm.
And to continue, I'm not opposed to allowing this fence to stand.
And just following back on this,
I'm doing it, yeah.
with the grade stuff, so I guess somebody could throw a fence in compliance now by grading up to it,
Yeah,
right? Just creating a mound of dirt 2 feet high, slope it
Technically.
back from that fence. And that fence becomes
Yeah.
compliant. So it's really,
as long as they're not cutting off somebody's drainage.
right, yeah, enforcing water elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, exactly. The comment I was gonna make is they have a site plan for your water drainage and all that now when you build, right? As you,
If for new
well,
homes,
for a new home, as you're well aware.
Mine's over 100 years old though, so
yeah,
Well,
and that's the thing,
Deputy Mayor is aware of, of what is involved and
you build a new home, you're right, you have to comply with your site plan. But the day after you get it stamped, you know, you can pretty much do what you want to do after that. And I mean, if a neighbor complains that, so-and-so did something to cause my drainage to quit working, then we would deal with it, but otherwise it would just happen.
and just following up on
Yep.
Councillor Burgess' comment, I think I would be more reluctant to approve the fence exemption if we had a 6-foot fence and an 8-foot fence, and there was a full 2-foot difference, and it was visible. The fence that this fence butts up against, if you've driven by or seen it, it's about a 6-inch variation between the two fences. So when you look at 408's fence to 406's fence, they're almost flush at the top. So it's not, the 8-foot fence doesn't look as out of place as it would if it was up against a 6-foot fence. That's my comment.
I'm of the same opinion as Council Mondu. This one.
yeah, well, I'll just, if I can just refer to what the mayor said, like, I don't want to set a precedent. Right? And with the amount of. Yeah, we've seen a few of these now, and with other things happening in the village where people just seem to be doing what they want, when they want. I think we need to send a message. That, this is the bylaw and you need to abide by the bylaws. So I'll make a motion that basically the fence does not meet the provisions of section 5 of bylaw 2024 of 1994. And any 8-foot section should be reduced to a height of 6 feet or removed entirely at the discretion of the homeowner.
I'll second.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor? That's carried, not carried, sorry, 3-2.
So it is carried.
Sorry, it is carried.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's not
So
unanimous.
we,
Yeah.
yeah,
do we do opposed anymore or just,
Oh, sure.
Okay, opposed? Thank you,
just
thank you.
So I'll contact the 406 property and let her know what the decision was. I wonder, so would council be happy with it being cut at the same level as the 408 property? Was that,
it's not what his motion
that
said.
wasn't. No.
They just passed, so. I would have, because it's only about a 6-inch difference
Yeah.
between the two fences, but
I'm just anticipating that request may come back and potentially if they measure from 408 side, maybe it is only 6 feet. I don't know. And like, I don't know the contours there.
no,
It'll
which
be-
406 is truly 8 feet,
Yeah,
and the ground in front of it.
regardless of
obviously,
what side.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the cement structure on 408's
Okay.
property that's creating the extra foot in their fence.
Okay. Okay, the next item is fairly substantial. So I've gone through the bylaw and there's a number of issues that I think we need to discuss. And I've kind of listed them and thought we'd just go through them one by one. And then there might be other issues that others have as well. These are just what I've identified. So if I may.
Yeah, this would be a good way to do it, yeah.
So should the bylaw be referring, or should the bylaw only be referring largely to dogs? For example, under mitigating factors, it talks about the behavior of a dog. Could it be changed to say the behavior of an animal? And then animal is described in one of the things that's defined in the bylaw.
I thought it should say dogs because we only license for dogs. But that was just one thought that I had.
I think,
What other animals?
yeah.
You know, I don't know.
So I think the reason to change, like, there's another place that talks about being bitten by a dog. But should it not say being bitten by an animal? Like if somebody has something other than a dog and they get bit,
Sure.
perhaps the same rules should apply. You're correct on the licensing issue, but I think if we just say animal, that covers dog. And if at some point in the future we decide to license cats, I mean, God forbid, but if we
Don't start
did,
that route.
Well, and there was a gentleman on Victoria years ago that had a pet pig
Mhm.
and it could have bit somebody
Yeah,
or
they're
caused
aggressive.
somebody harm, so.
Yeah.
But pigs aren't allowed.
Well, he moved to Sarnia now, so.
Livestock's not allowed.
No, these are pot-bellied pigs.
yeah,
Cats.
Is that what's the classification of that?
yeah, that would.
That's
be
when you get into gray areas, right?
debatable.
So number one, we said changed animals. I don't-
Animal,
Do we want to explore that at some point later? Maybe not tonight? Because there
Yeah,
are people that have different types of exotic or not so exotic pets. It might be interesting to.
Mhm. So we do, like I'm sure you're aware, we passed an exotic animal bylaw 4 or 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and it lists what's prohibited. By default, it's not prohibited.
Mhm.
The assumption is it is prohibited or is
It's
allowed.
allowable.
I'm sorry. Our zoning bylaw prohibits keeping of livestock of any sort.
Mhm.
So that's where it comes down and is this pot-bellied pig livestock or is it a pet? And, I think if it was being treated as a pet and it wasn't smelling up the area, like if its waste was being picked up the same as a dog's does, then
They're domesticated.
yeah,
Yep.
then I think you'd have a hard time banning a pet pig or anything like that.
Not that I want to take this too far in that direction, but could I have a pet chicken?
I think that's livestock.
Yeah, there are a few people in the village that have chickens,
Mhm.
but they've had them since before the
The
bylaw.
grandfathered.
Yeah, their grandfather.
Yeah, I grew up
So
with
Yeah.
people behind me that had.
we tell people now, if they come in and ask, they're told they cannot have chickens.
What if Councillor Burgess said a service chicken?
Well, then you can't deny it.
Yeah.
It's a service animal. That's.
No, a little
If he gets the
fuzzy
proper
chick, you get a
paperwork.
little fuzzy
Yeah.
chick at
Yeah.
Easter time, and that's,
If
what's
you-
the difference of a fuzzy chick at Easter than a fuzzy bunny at Easter,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Because people do have pet
Yeah.
bunnies too.
Sure.
No, and I'm not trying to drag this out tonight,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying it might be worth exploring
Yeah.
down the road.
So the next issue is about livestock being permitted in the village according to, or not permitted according to our zoning bylaw. Should we have a definition of what constitutes livestock when it's actually prohibited? And this was a question brought up by the Building Services Department and the Property Standards folks. To me, I think it should remain in there. I think we should have a definition for livestock, and then that way there's no, what's included and what's not. So
Mhm.
I think it should be left there.
Yep.
So, okay, we'll leave it, we'll leave that. Under the definition of a bite, it refers to a dog, it should be animal.
Mhm.
We're okay with that. Bylaw prohibits kennels. But should we still have a definition? So, and I would argue we should, because how can we prohibit something that's not defined in the bylaw? Like, I don't think it hurts to have it there at all.
And so just, if I may, through you, Mayor, so a kennel, if I put a fenced in area in my backyard for my dog, is that a kennel? Or are you meaning a kennel that houses multiple dogs or commercial?
Probably
So let
takes money.
me-
Yeah, like would that be commercial?
An
Because-
enterprise.
Because some people do build
Mhm.
like areas in their yard
Mhm.
with fencing for their.
So a kennel means a lot, building, structure, or establishment in which 4 or more dogs are housed, boarded, or bred,
Okay, thank you.
and is licensed under this bylaw.
Okay,
So
so then we should.
if
separate
another
that.
place we prohibit them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they should still be defined.
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
Okay, we'll leave that. Again, definition of a muzzle, the current bylaw says over a dog's mouth, it maybe needs to say over an animal's mouth,
So Councillor Burgess's chicken would have to have a muzzle.
if it ever bites in.
Okay.
Yeah. pet stores are not allowed in the village, so that's the zoning bylaw prohibits pet stores, or I don't think it prohibits them. But it's not listed as an allowed use in any of the zones. So should we have a definition that states what a pet store is? Again, I don't think it hurts to have it in there. It just, it gives us a little bit more to say if somebody comes in and wants to put in a pet store. Okay, well, pet store is defined. Here it's not allowed, so therefore you can't do it. So unless there's any other thoughts, we'll leave that definition in there.
I agree with that.
Mhm.
Section 3.2 provides an exemption to bees, so beehives are not permitted. So I think that exemption should be removed from the bylaw. Obviously, it's not meant for the bee that's flying around at your backyard picnic. It's the
Commercial hives.
Yeah, it's hives that,
And
so,
again, so I support that because there were
There was
beehives
a hive,
that were built on Victoria a few years back.
Mhm.
Right.
and We had to move them out of town because
Yep.
residents actually were getting bees at their
Right.
pools and
like
everywhere.
over
So-
around Ernest,
Yeah.
right?
So you're saying,
not here.
so the draft bylaw provides an exemption to allow beehives,
Right,
but we currently don't permit them as part of our zoning. So you're saying to remove that totally so
Yeah.
that our zoning bylaw
Mhm.
takes precedent.
right.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
I agree with that.
Okay, so section 3.2 also provides an exemption for circuses, carnivals, and classroom events. So you get, Fred's Traveling Circus comes in, or Fred's Traveling Zoo. I think if we're going to exempt them, then there should also be a permit required from the village. So that these things can't just take place wherever and whenever somebody wants to do it, there'd be a permit included. So I'd put a clause in the bylaw that says in order to have these carnivals, you can have them, but you have to obtain a permit from the village to do it.
Through the CAO, I think we have a permit for circus.
I believe
Already.
you're right. I think there is.
I think there is something,
Yeah,
maybe we can
permit
just
fee.
expand that definition on the fee schedule.
All right, section 5.3, I want to go find section 5.3. So 5.3 is the number of animals permitted on premises may be subject to a nutrient management plan. Which is nutrient management plans are used in agricultural settings to determine the required distance from a livestock operation or a manure storage facility to determine how far those facilities need to be from residential settings. So because we don't have agricultural operations in the village, that's why I'm suggesting that we can get rid of 5.3.
Agreed.
Agree.
Okay.
Sure.
Section 7.5 says that a dog can be at large if it's used for hunting, which we do not have in Point Edward, so I suggest we remove that clause.
I agree.
Yeah.
It also allows somebody to say, well, we're still hunting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Sorry, they'll find that loophole,
yeah.
right?
Section 8, again, change dog to animal. Section 10.2. We could add in consider adding or adoption, so it says skip there. 10.2 says no proprietor of a retail store, including a pet store, shall offer for sale or sell cats and dogs. So it would say shall offer for sale or adoption or sell cats and dogs.
Yeah.
So
It's thorough.
just to. Without it, somebody could potentially offer animals up for adoption. And that one does say animals, so that's good. 13.2, and this is talking about animals locked in vehicles. It's like kind of the dog in the car when it's 112 degrees out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it authorizes certain people to get the dog, take whatever measures are necessary to get the dog out of the vehicle. And the property standards officer suggested we add that without repercussion or liability, just to provide a little bit more protection for the enforcement officer.
I agree with that.
Section 15, similar to, or question. Section 15.1, similar to the question on number 12. To add, sell or provide for adoption. Prohibits that. So in section 15.1, it talks about prohibiting animals, each definition, this is the prohibited animals in the village, and we already have an exotic animal bylaw that prohibits a lot, but this is another piece that's basically doing the same thing. And under each class of animals, it says, cows are not allowed in the village unless except located on premise zoned agricultural in the municipality zoning bylaw. Well, we don't have any agricultural zones in the village, so I think we should just take that section out. So basically, we're saying cows are not allowed in the village. I don't know, that's cows aren't an exotic species, but whatever those exotic species are. 16.9 is a piece about releasing a dangerous a dog that's been declared dangerous, releasing it back to the owner, and the property standards officials felt that we should add in there that an inspection is required by property standards to say that the property is is in a condition where the dog can't escape. So my dog gets out, it's a dangerous animal, they capture it before they release it to me. The property standards officer has to come in, have a look at the property and determine that there's no likelihood of the animal getting out of the property again.
Okay.
So it's building in a bit of a safety piece for that. And then section number 17 is
16.9D.
yeah, let me go there now. Oh, that's just D is if an impounded dog. So if you read from during the redemption period, the owner of an impounded dog or cat may redeem it if the owner, and it says if an impounded dog, it should say of an impounded dog. So that's all that was changing if to of. And then the last one is this idea of, there's a lot of references in the bylaw to pound keeper. And a number of them should be changed to municipality. Like it puts a lot of responsibility on a pound keeper. We use the Sarnia District Humane Society, but ultimately it's the municipality that is making a lot of those rules. And so I would propose, there may still be instances in the bylaw where pound keeper is appropriate, but there's a lot of them that should say municipality. So I'll just work through the bylaw and make those changes. So the other piece of this, I'd like to, before we pass this as a council, before it gets passed as council, I would like to circulate it to the Ministry of the Attorney General. For I've done this with the open burn bylaw, and they came back with a fair number of changes specifically to the set fine schedule. And so I think what I've learned from that is we should send it to them. They'll do it proactively. So it will save that step of passing the bylaw, sending it then for approval and sending it back with a bunch of changes. So
Makes sense.
I'd like to do that with this bylaw, and that's a service they offer. So so my plan here would be to go through this list, make changes I've talked about. If there's other changes that people want to talk about, I would obviously be open to hearing what other things you'd like to see looked at, but and then I would just bring the bylaw back for the next meeting. Probably because we're not scheduled to meet for a while, I'd probably make those changes, send it out to council to have a quick review, send it off to the Ministry of the Attorney General and try and have it available for the September meeting.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, the next item is the
Oh, and like, are we? Doing a resolution for that?
I would just, you can just say in the minutes, the direction was provided to the CAO to make the recommended changes from the report. Something, you know, that type of wording. Active transportation study actions. So this is an email from Deputy Mayor Grimes with some suggestions on things that we should implement. As a result of the report from Paradigm. Specifically some changes on Michigan at Livingston and Alfred, and some changes on Monk Street, and then also some stuff on Louisa Street, possibly changing some stop signs and putting some painting lines on the road to delineate traveled lanes and parking lanes. So these are all things that were recommended. While the pedestrian crossing at Alfred Street is a separate issue from the Paradigm report that came out. That's a suggestion from, as a result of the crossing guard situation change. So I think the idea there is to put in a crossing that people can use without a crossing guard, put the bump outs so that when children are crossing the road, they have a much shorter distance to travel where vehicles would be. And it would actually, the thought is it would extend kind of it would help slow down traffic going into the downtown corridor. So that's where that idea comes from. So there's some comments in there about what we can do. There is some engineering work specifically on the pedestrian crossings. There's you know, there are estimates that Paradigm has provided. I've talked to Lydia from MIG about these things, and she can get us, based on the quantities and such from the St. Clair Street project, she can give us a fairly good idea of what these different items would cost. And, you know, she can do, you know, she can design it and say, you know, we need 12 meters of curb to do the bump out. The price per meter of curb on the St. Clair project was X. So she could figure out what the price is based on that. And then we'd bring that to council and we could approach the contractor and say, would you be willing to do this work for this price? That's one approach. The other approach is getting the work done and just going up to tender for the whole thing, you know, determine what we're going to do and go to tender for those pieces along Michigan Ave at the 3 different streets. The work on Louisa Street, that's what requires there is a change to the bylaw, to the traffic bylaw. It sets out in there where stop signs are, so it's just a matter of changing the bylaw to correspond with where you want stop signs. And then the street painting, that's something we can, you know, we can work towards. It's fairly simple to get that kind of stuff done. The city does it, the county does it, so see if we can get it done still this year or not. I'm not sure, we'll try. And then they're already doing, as part of this St. Clair Street project, they're realigning the intersection of Louisa and Helena as part of that project already. So a couple of things in the Paradigm report are being taken care of through the St. Clair project. And then these other things, I think we should, I think we can move forward on the Louisa Street stuff if we want to, at least some of it. And then the others, I think we should really, I'm not sure we want to just authorize going ahead with it now, but I think we could find out from Lydia what kind of timeline she would need and go from there.
Didn't want to start?
Through the CAO there. I think considering the difference in pricing on bids, we really need to wait before we do any major work here until we get that, you know, we make a selection and then have a firmer number in our mind and know what the cost is of these. to see if it's, we're able to do it within our budget that we've allotted for the, project. But Louisa Street, I'd like to see something start there if we could.
Let's go next.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Grimes.
I've heard the comments about the overall cost and, I think we have to remind ourselves, we have $2 million in reserves. We're gonna be passing a bylaw for some debenture funding, which at this stage exceeds the 2 tenders that we've received for the project. So I think financially for this project, we're in much better shape than we at one point during COVID thought. So total cost of this is probably going to be with engineering in the $500,000 mark. I think is a fair estimate, but it completes Michigan Avenue, it completes Louisa Street, it completes the St. Clair, ties it all together. And I think if we're going to make these radical changes to St. Clair Street and just the whole traffic flow, that doing it all makes for a much better safety in the community. We have the opportunity to do it as part of the budget. The funds are there now, and having the contractor in town during doing the work should bring the cost to a manageable thing. He's gonna have crews, he or she's gonna have crews here in town. They go over, they do some work on whatever street and get it done at the same time. When they're pouring curbs on St. Clair, to pour some extra curbs on Michigan is not going to be as prohibitive. And regarding moving the stop signs on Louisa and Albert, I think that should be done as part of if we move ahead with everything. So all I'm asking that we approve is the concept or the idea of this, and then give staff permission to go ahead to spend some money with Lydia or at MIG, I guess we should say.
Right.
To get the drawings done and some firmer costs. If we don't move ahead with giving the green light to at least start the process, we're going to be into late September and we'll miss this opportunity to dovetail the project in with the other project. It's either, if we don't give them the green light now, then we're going to be doing this next spring, and who knows if we'll have that money. So that's why I'm thinking now is the time to move forward. We're not, if we do anything with this tonight, it's not approving it. We're just asking Jim and staff to go out there and get some answers for us on it. Can it be done and how expensive will it be?
If I may, the St. Clair Street project is not all being done this year. It's gonna be spread over 2 years.
Okay.
There's no way it's all gonna happen this year. We're certainly planning on at least one phase
Mhm.
out of a 4-phase breakdown.
Okay.
So the contractor will be in the area next spring
Yep,
as well.
okay.
So I think it gives us time to plan and still possibly take advantage of those. Got the guy in town already
Right, right.
doing it for this
Okay.
price, maybe.
And that phase, Michigan Ave, is at the end. So they're starting at front.
That's the plan, yeah.
Phase 1 starts at Front Street, so you have time. The next piece would be into the next year.
Most likely, I
Most likely,
really
yeah.
don't think they're gonna have time to do 2 phases this year, but.
But But still, I think, yeah, look at how by delaying stuff on this project, it's now put it in 4 phases
Yeah.
over 2 years.
Yeah.
So if we delay again on this other work, we could be farther. So I just think, all I'm saying is, I just want to get you to go ahead to give the consideration, get firm numbers, get the design work, and we may find out some of the stuff can't even be done or whatever, right? So at least start the process. And then wherever it fits in phase 1, 2, 3, 4, year 1, year 2, but move it forward. And then when we change the stop signs, it's part of that overall change to traffic flow in the village. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere, right? Like it's all part of a new way to drive around the village.
Paul? Council Burgess, sir.
I have a question regarding the PXO crosswalk at Alfred Street. Are we on a time crunch for that?
I don't think there's any way we'll get it done from the start of the school year. I think we'll, for I would say for this coming school year, we need to find another solution for children, like we need to find another crossing guard solution for another year. My goal would be to have it done and completed for the next, for 2024 September. And, you know, maybe it gets done in April, I don't know. But there's no way it's getting
Well,
done by
no way we-
September.
So you need a solution for a period of time anyway.
Well,
Yeah,
it could be
that's-
we hired somebody to.
Yeah.
Just do it,
That's,
Well,
the-
yeah,
that's,
you
yeah.
might find a contract.
Yeah.
that could
to
just-
do that one-off.
Yeah,
that's the one thing that really jumped out at me because not only is that busy for school, I know where I live, I can see that corner. And there's constantly kids that live around my area that will use the schoolyard in the summer as a park, use the basketball nets.
Mhm.
And the street is very busy. So I would see that being a huge benefit to everybody. Just getting across Michigan Ave at a safe place, even people that live on Sandy Lane that walk to the service club for events they run. I always know something's going on because people walk. And as the seniors that live there crossing Michigan, I think that would be a great addition.
But I also, if I may, I also look at to add a crosswalk there now. And then the St. Clair Street one, and then the Living Street one. If we do all three of them at once. Then you can educate people on
Mhm.
how to approach a crosswalk, how to cross, what cars should do. When all of them go into place, right? The one on St. Clair, those in Michigan. Rather than just all of a sudden one pops up that we're not used to, right? So I know we have the one on Venetian.
That would be a daunting task to educate people.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because I know over the years crossing that road
Yeah.
with a person in a reflective vest with a big
Yeah.
stop sign and watching people drive through it. I've seen it all over the years that my kids cross there and it's
Yeah.
it's challenging.
Oh,
And I
yes.
know having young drivers in my house,
Mhm.
my daughter educated me about the one on Michigan Ave at the Howard Watson crossing.
Yep.
You know, when do I go? When am I allowed to cross that? And because she took driver's education at her, you know, as a 16-year-old,
Mhm.
I got that education from her going through there. But yeah, it would take a lot to get that word out to some drivers.
Mhm.
I think the biggest advantage of that will be the bump outs.
Mhm.
So you're only crossing 15 or 20 feet instead of 40.
Well, the person trying to make the right turn while the crossing guard's got
Mhm.
Michigan Ave stopped and they still think they can squeeze,
Mhm.
make their right turn to go. So yeah, that I like all of that.
So for me, it's, I've already told everybody, I have a concern. And I'm not saying I won't support it, but I'm really concerned about how much money we need to be, preparing to spend at environmental services. We have issues over there that we're not addressing. So all the money's going into the roads. What about the safety concerns at the environmental? And then today we got a big, we have to spend more money on the roof at the arena. Came in, we have to
Well,
find, well, we have, it's an impact.
These are things we're not aware of as counselors. Like
About the
roof,
environmental
the
services?
roof. That's
Well,
new
it just
stuff.
happened.
Yeah,
But environmental services, we've known that for months and months, and months.
yeah. The only thing with it is a
Years.
different budget and a different,
Okay, as
yeah.
long as we have to be thinking about, it can't all, it's like, I'm glad to see all the roads get done. But I don't want to leave another group void.
Mhm.
And what I would like to see is Louisa Street included in the work. Because it's a manageable amount. And we've added in some of the Louisa Street stuff into St. Clair already. I would like to include that. It's the lower priced item,
So by included,
like agree to have that in sooner rather than later.
I thought we already
It
did
is, it
include
is,
that
it is included.
when we had that meeting. I thought we
The
did
painting?
include.
No, yeah, I'm recommending we do it as item C.
Yeah,
Right,
but I
but it's
thought it
part
was
of it,
included
oh,
as
yes.
part of St. Clair
No.
because when we got that presentation, I thought that was a recommendation from the engineers.
yeah, so what's included is the work right at the intersection of.
Yeah. Making it,
Lena and Louisa.
making it 90 degrees.
Yeah,
And I don't think,
nothing
yeah.
to do with stop signs or painting lines. That's
Okay.
not-
All right.
That's not approved yet.
and if I may, what I'm trying to reaffirm is. We shouldn't paint any lines or move any stop signs until we've made that corner 90 degrees. We want people to say, oh, this is weird, I'm turning 90 degrees and then see the lines, the new stop sign. If we just all of a sudden paint lines, but don't correct the other part of it. I think it needs to be, Louisa Street needs to be done from front to back all at once.
Mhm.
So have a contract, and then when they do the corner and change it out, then within the week, we paint the lines and change the signs.
But that's what I'm saying. That's approving that part now. The rest of it has to go out for review on engineering, total costs, like, I mean, these are much bigger items.
Yeah.
Cost wise.
I'm not clear enough on the phasing. I would assume that the Louisa Helena Street is in the first phase, but I don't know that.
Mhm.
But I do agree that it's a good idea to kind of tie it all together
Mhm.
and do it all at once, so. And it is only painting and stop sign changes, right? It's not the physical construction changes
Right.
are already being done as part of the St. Clair project, so.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is a line item in the tenders for, a per meter cost for painting lines. I would imagine they would honor the price to, if they're gonna get another 600 meters, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be a problem, but
It'd just be a change order and say,
Yeah.
we want you to paint Louisa Street.
Yeah.
I just think having everything tied together, so the changes happen
relatively-
together, and it helps us with education, and that is, but I fully support the Louisa Street stuff.
Well, I want to like roll it in now. Potentially it's getting done in phase one and then have it all done. And the other parts, we get the better pricing and then it happens in the other phase, so we have more time to make decisions. Do you know what I mean? Louisa Street's more imminent
Mhm.
and lower cost and something we can easily complete as what was recommended by Paradigm, and then get better pricing on the rest, like firm ideas on the engineering costs and where it would really land. So decision one, decision two.
So if I may, I've got a motion here to try, if your
Yeah, if you
thing
want,
covers it.
I'll let you know if it
Thank
aligns
you.
with my thoughts. Yeah.
That council direct the CAO to proceed with planning for the work contemplated in the report. And that the work on Louisa Street be rolled into the St. Clair project. At the time of. Completing the work at the intersection of Helena and Louisa.
It's not really what my intent when I put this forward. Because I think I would like to see. I think we just need to say that. Yeah. That's fine.
So
It
would,
wouldn't be done till the intersection's done.
Yeah.
And then you finish it.
Yeah.
And it's all then one,
But I'd also like to add on that the Michigan Avenue phases being treated the same when we get to Michigan St. Clair,
okay,
right? So that when we build the crosswalk at Michigan St. Clair, we also do the school and Livingston. So that all three crosswalks go in the same month. But the motion right now is to give you permission to go ahead
With
and
the
meet
plan.
with MIG and whoever the successful contractors come up with a plan on how we get these four phases or these four items looked at, and they give us better pricing. And then at the time, council will decide. I'm not saying we're gonna go with all four, but
right,
you may come back and say, well, Livingston's gonna cost you $1 million. And then we're gonna say, no, sorry, thanks, but no thanks. Right?
Yeah.
And then part two of my email was that the other two items, Venetian and Mission and the waterfront, be referred to the county and our budgets, right?
Mhm.
At least keep them active, keep them out there.
well, we know that the county's doing the work in 2 years.
Yeah.
In the waterfront park.
Yeah.
So my thought was some of that might get rolled in.
Yeah.
At that time when they were changing the alignment for the front
Yeah.
of the park, moving the entrance in for safety reasons, moving it.
But, yeah.
Towards our pergola.
But I'd also like us to at least write the county a letter, and I know they were very involved in Paradigm, and just say,
Yeah.
that we're moving forward with this. If you could keep this in your planning, your 5-year plan or whatever, so that they know that it's.
Or just Deputy Mayor Grimes, from him being involved with the Trails Committee, I'm aware that the council or county is aware, and they were the one that told me that they were looking at Venetian for bike lanes before we mentioned it to them. So it's already, it may not be on a formal plan, but it's certainly, they're looking at that right now.
Good, thank you.
So
So, like, there's a motion on the floor. Is anyone
Wow.
against?
Yeah, there's a suggestion.
Right, so can you read it back and then I'll move it.
The council direct the CAO to proceed with planning for the work contemplated in the report. And I'll. In the active transportation study actions report,
Okay,
and that the work on Louisa Street be rolled into the St. Clair project at the appropriate time of completing the work at Helena and Louisa.
and that the remaining projects be referred to county council and village budget.
All right.
I just don't want them to fall off the radar. And then I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Any more questions? All in favor? Thank you.
Now we have a funner one.
Yes.
Just give me 1 minute.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, okay, Tourism Sarnia Lamp sent us an email. They first reached out to us about probably a month ago about
Mhm.
this, and then just they set up a meeting last week for this Oktoberfest idea. And it's they did an event last year at the PASA, that's Progressive Auto Sales Arena. They did it right around Christmas time, so it's like a craft beer and wine show. And they're looking to move that event into Point Edward somewhere. Their request, originally, they were talking about using Waterfront Park. And they wondered if we had any ideas for other spots. So we talked to them about former Bridge Tavern property. Because it's fairly solid ground and, you know, if you get a couple of rains the days before, you can still set up on that. So, you know, we just, and then they also talked about the Garvin Lee's site as well.
Where they did the breakfast.
Yeah. So those are kind of the three options they're looking at. We don't have a whole lot of details yet, other than that. I believe they have reached out to the owners of the former Bridge Tavern property to see if they're interested. So really at this point, just information for council that they're looking at doing this and looking for approval to work with them. At the staff level, like we didn't involve the fire department, depending on where it was, we involved the public works department and, you know, just make sure that things are set up. We involve police because they're, you know, obviously they're gonna want a liquor license, therefore there will be police involvement. You know, basically at this point, just looking for approval from council to work forward with this. Obviously, coming back to council for further approval before anything is given the final okay.
So they didn't get past for to use for that other date. And some of the vendors that said that wasn't a good time for them in December. They're too busy with their product and their own Christmas type activities. So we think the shift in time works better for the vendors. And then the evening would be local entertainment, not the pricey stuff. Some local bands.
Question, did they consider the parking lot at the casino? I thought for some reason
Can't
you
use it.
can't use that.
Yeah, there's some
Some
concerns with,
integrity issues
yeah.
with it.
Just across the road where it's
Yeah,
paved
can't
and
use it.
solid ground. Okay, I
That's-
thought that was a possibility.
Well, that's
there.
where they were gonna use that during the breakfast for parking. That's how I found out there's some kind of integrity issues
Okay,
underground, and that's why it's all still blocked off.
okay,
So,
the other concern
Yeah.
with that area is access. If you recall, when they were doing the Border Fest,
yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't want that.
yeah,
It was sort of
mean,
a funnel and.
yeah,
Yeah,
people were trying.
this is
to
a
do that.
lot smaller event, but still a concern that way. I was thinking about this the other night and they talked about the idea of a street party. And I kind of thought about closing down Monk Street. and having a street party, like set everything up in Monk Street. Then you got the arena for parking, like, just a thought I had after that, you know, I mean, we've never talked to the businesses since I've been here about closing down Michigan. But my understanding is it's happened in the past and the businesses were not very supportive of the idea of,
We talked about closing the street down for Christmas in the Village, and there was a couple that said no,
yeah.
of businesses.
So I thought, well, maybe closing it on Monk Street. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to take a look at the residences that are there. There's, you know, maybe half a dozen homes that it would affect, but it just a thought that
That's more for the future,
Thought,
because now
yeah.
we've already set up a meeting with the Bridge Tavern owners. That was happening this week.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, do we approve in principle, and then they work on where they can do it.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea in principle, but obviously there's details to work out.
Well, it worked out for Border Fest, right? You know, you gave approval, they moved
Right.
forward.
Yeah.
We came up with a plan, we approved it, and it was a very successful event.
And the other thing that I thought of personally was, we didn't have Bridge Bash. And so many people reached out and said, what, no Bridge Bash? So, well, you know, the Optimist didn't run it, so it's still a chance to have
We're bringing
one
something.
festival in the season.
I'll make a motion. You want?
Sorry, when does the ice go in the arena?
about September 15th-ish.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking about Monk Street and the arena traffic at that point, if the ice is in.
So really, I think this, just for information, we don't really need a motion or
Okay.
anything at this point, and just.
We don't need
I
to give
understand the
support.
direction. You
Technical
can,
support,
but
well,
I don't,
I mean, if nobody's gonna support it, then they shouldn't keep working on it.
right,
That's all. I was just thinking. Their staff's
For
doing the
sure.
work.
I'll make a motion that the village approves in principle the request from Tourism Sarnia Lambton to hold an Oktoberfest in Point Edward on the weekend of October or September 29th to 31st, 2023.
I'll second.
Any other questions? All in favor?
That way we got it down. We'll give them something to work with.
What was that band he mentioned?
I don't know, I don't
Okay,
remember.
no, anyway.
I think it was that guy that used to do the polka.
Oh, Moran,
Oh, Mark Moran,
Mark Moran. What band is that? I don't know, but
Killer Jane.
Thinking Walter Austin,
Walter
but I just don't know if
Yeah.
Walter's
Walter
still gonna start on
yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Polka Time on CTV.
It's
Kitchener.
not, I said I wanted Painkiller Jane, but that's not the one that had stepped up. It was the other one.
You probably covered that when you're living there.
Many of
Walter
them.
was a rock
Yeah.
star.
Yeah.
Okay.
TV show.
Community events, public announcements, or
Oh,
anybody have new
I have some new
information?
business first.
Yeah.
Yep. I just wanted to follow up on two properties that are getting a little bit derelict. And first is Exmouth Street, and I know we've had some email exchanges, but is there any update?
The
on that?
last there was an email from between the contractor and the contractor provided the owner with an estimate yesterday or today, so expect.
And then I see the golf course property a lot, and it has become largely overgrown. It's growing through the fences and everything like
over
that.
here,
There's buildings, yeah, like the old golf course, the Holiday Inn.
Oh, God,
Sorry,
what?
yeah, I know, no, I'm not talking about the storm, Dove, no, no.
I thought,
sorry.
I'll give these poor guys a break.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
talking, so
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Holiday one,
yeah.
and if you go down the channel in the Guildwood, there are sheds that are falling into the water. Now there's a bed back there with a headboard. I can only see the headboard, so there's stuff going on in there, and I think we were very nice to the owner of the property today. And I think we need to follow up and just tell him that, remind him that he has an obligation to maintain that property.
Mhm.
When Paul Wicks owned it, he used to get cut 2 or 3 times a summer.
Mhm.
And I think it's just become overgrown. It's not.
Yeah, I
not
noticed
good.
it. I took the ride down behind the Guildwood on the boat last week. I hadn't seen that. Like, I wonder if there's even people in those little sheds.
I think there are.
I think there are.
I've seen people living there before.
Because
yeah.
it's very secluded now.
Yeah.
With all the overgrowth.
Yeah.
So,
And then, so the Exmouth and Golf Course, yeah, and then we're passing the burn bylaw tonight, right? Or, yeah. So is the one, we talked about a one pager to go to, is that being developed or underway?
It's largely done.
Okay, perfect.
I've just reached out to the OPP to talk about putting the appropriate contact, so
Okay,
we're going to put the non-emergency OPP number. And now I'm kind of like, Kara's got it, it's ready to go,
perfect.
but I didn't want to send it out until we get final approval from the ministry.
Well, that makes sense.
So
Yep.
It's well
Good.
well underway.
Thank you. That's all I had, a new business in your hand.
Lost my page. I just wanted to mention, a piece of work that's going on with laws, and it's, we've gone to an RFP for a study to look at, a reorganization, and I mentioned this, touched on this before when Clinton came and did the presentation on the issue we have with trying to get grants as member municipalities. So they're looking at potentially a restructuring to be called a municipal service corporation. So the study, the money was already in the budget for them to do the study and come back and decide if that's the way to go. And then with that restructuring, we're all still members and sit on the board, but it's a different structure of titling. And then the municipal service corporation can apply for grants that do not affect the individual members. So if Point Edward still wants to apply for a grant, it doesn't matter if we got a grant through laws already. There are some examples in Ontario that are already set up this way. So they came from the auditors and that study's underway. So I'll let you know. And if it comes to that, then Clinton will be coming back and doing another presentation to explain what this municipal service corporation, what the change would be. And then also just a reminder, September 26th, there's an emergency management joint exercise between Sarnia Laws and Point Edward. So our fire departments and Claudio's been involved in that. And just an FYI, we purchased 15 backpacks for going back to school backpacks. There's 4 age groups. And we bought 3 in each of the 4 categories. And it came out of the mayor's account. So it's probably somewhere under $400. And they get donated to kids that need them. We did it last year. This year, the price was up a little bit. Manly's put them together. And then Manly's will just bill us for the cost of those ones that we purchased, and then they get donated. Just thought I'd mention that. That's all I had. We already talked about the casino stuff. That's all I had. And then we don't have a committee meeting in August. Just a reminder for anybody that's listening.
Remind me of that.
Yeah, but for the
Oh,
viewing
yeah.
audience, that it's August, we take the committee off and we come back together in September.
You. CAO Burns, I sent you a note requesting information on storm.
Yeah, so storm damage,
Back to the village.
things that there's still lots of tree issues that we're dealing with, even on village property. So Optimus Park, the tree that lost a substantial branch is gonna have to come down. I mean, the bark stripped off of a third of it probably. So Steve's gonna look after that. He's also gonna talk to Boar Fencing about repairing the fence in that area. There's a large oak tree, very large oak tree that came down at Public Works, and it's currently laying on top of 2 of our trailers. The one dump trailer with the big black one with the sides on it, and then also the boat trailer from the fire department. There is some damage to the boat trailer for sure. We don't know yet because the tree hasn't been taken off it yet. We need Guardian to come in and do it just because of the way it's laying, and our guy, Steve, is not comfortable with it and being so large. So it hasn't been done yet because it's not a safety issue to anyone at this point. But we also haven't been able to evaluate the damage to the trailers because it's covered with this tree. So, but we'll that's the tree at that's a priority, and the tree in Optimus Park is a priority, although I think one in Optimus Park, I think we have some time, but that tree is gonna die now. I'm pretty sure it will anyway.
Just a question on the one at Public Works. Is it not on the vacuum?
No, the vacuum thing got pulled out. and
Did it get
something
pulled out?
else.
Cause I know it was in under there, it looked like as well.
But there were more than one tree came down too.
Oh, okay, cause there's
So
still
they might have
one
taken-
sitting in the yard there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The vacuum and something else was there. I can't remember what it was, but they were able to get two of the items out.
Okay.
But these other two trailers are like firmly under this tree. Steve said he's gonna take another look at it and see if he thinks he can just take a couple of branches off to get the trailers out. But he's not gonna take any chances.
If they're not, they don't need them, leave
You
them.
don't need the trailer today, so they might as well,
There's no urgency
Not-
to the trailers.
wait and do it safely.
There are some fence damage done around Public Works that they'll have Boar look at that as well. Lots of boulevard trees that have limbs hanging and that type of thing that we'll look at. And then there's a huge stump across the road from Public Works. The tree is all cleaned up pretty much, but the stump will have to be dealt with still. And Steve thought there might still be some actual wood in the stump that they can get out of it. Like if the stump is 3 feet long, they can cut a couple chunks out of it to make it smaller. But so that's pretty much the issues on village property. No damage to buildings that we've that we're aware of. Pretty lucky that I can't believe that branch come down to the fire hall didn't
Well, then one at the
Didn't take any
school, too, it
wires.
didn't, it's on the school roof, but it didn't damage it.
damage it. It's quite phenomenal how some of these things happen, but anyway, so there'll be, like, you've seen the post on Facebook about people getting their brush out to the road and we'll deal with it from there. It's just, we're not required to do that, but it's just something we kind of do. So we did have Guardian was in here on Sunday with 2 crews cleaning up a bunch of stuff. I'm not sure if they'll be back or not. Steve thinks that they can get most of it cleaned up by the end of the week. What's there now? But it might continue to grow for a little while. So at some point we'll have to put an end to it. Like we'll say, we're coming around for the last time on August 15th.
Mhm.
And, whatever's, I don't know if that's the date, but at some point we'll select a date, so you need to have
Yeah.
your stuff out there by then. And we've had it, like, there's been people that have asked about us helping them with trees in their own property in their backyards and stuff. We're not getting into that. If you can get it out to the road, we'll help you deal with it from there, but we're not coming onto private property to deal with issues. I reached out to the insurance company today to talk about, to let them know that there was some damage to at least one trailer. But they said, we can't even get at it yet to see how bad it is, so. They're aware. I asked them about trees too. I don't think they would do anything about the cost of actually cleaning up a tree. That's kind of I know there was a couple of property owners that asked if the village was gonna have financial assistance for removal of private property trees because their insurance company told them they were on their own. So, I don't imagine our insurance will help clean up trees. The guys are working away at stuff and getting things cleaned up as quickly as they can.
Thank you.
I have one question that's kind of out there. Do we get feedback from emergency response, the
Oh.
sirens and that? Did we?
Oh, sorry.
We're working on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I know it's really early, but I've read a few things locally and I know it was.
There's a good
being dealt
article,
with.
good article in the journal. today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Kathy
Claudio's
Dobson did a
working
really
with
good
the
one.
city, asking for more information.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then he's
Want
not
to-
happy with the response he's got so far.
Yeah.
Like Claudio sent a letter over to, I believe, to Brian Van Gaver.
Yeah.
And got the same response that was given to the media, and he's not happy with that.
Mhm.
So he's asked Bev and I to send a letter
Mhm.
to, if Bev and I are gonna send it, it's probably gonna go to the mayor and
See, yeah.
the city, looking for more information.
Lost my- Oh, wait,
Like the
Yeah,
bylaws,
sorry. I covered it up.
the borrowing bylaws, the first one.
I can move that.
Thank you.
I'll move that bylaw 23 of 2023 being a bylaw established to authorize entering into a borrowing agreement for completion of the work on the St. Clair Light Street and any other additional projects related to that be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 25th day of July 2023.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, next one is bylaw 30.
Ariana, you should do that one. Sure,
Yeah.
it's your department.
I will move that bylaw 30 being a bylaw to authorize an agreement between the Village of Point Edward and the Sarnia Police Service Board for the provision of fire dispatch service be ready first, second, and third time and finally passed 25th day of July 2023.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Burgess. All in favor? Number 3, we had moved up in the agenda, so we'll move to number 4, which is bylaw 18, open burning.
So I think the report explains what's going on here. I sent the bylaw over. A lot of concern with the wording on the set fines. So I've changed that to the recommendations, sent it back, and they're fine with it, or at least the advisor is fine with it. It still has to go to the judge, but the advisor is comfortable recommending. The only change in the bylaw itself was in clause number 3 or 4. Change 4, I believe. And it was just it didn't change the intent of the bylaw at all. It just made it change the wording around so that it was creating an offense. So that's the only change to the actual bylaw. The rest of the changes are all in the set fine schedule. So my thought here is to rescind the motion from the meeting of June 27th, then give first and second reading to the bylaw, because normally, and I missed this at the last meeting, normally we would only give first and second reading and then give third and final once it's sent back to us, approved by the ministry.
I can do that. So I'll move that resolution 20 from the Point Edward Council meeting held June 27, 2023 be rescinded. And that bylaw 18 of 2023 being a bylaw to regulate open air burning be read a first and second time this 25th day of July 2023.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Confirmation bylaw.
I can take it. Move that bylaw 31 of 2023 being a bylaw to confirm the resolutions of Point Edward Council, which were adopted up to and including today's date, the 25th of July, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this day.
And
I'll
second that. Oops, sorry.
Councillor
Unless
Mondue.
somebody else wants it.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you.